Good evening, Jamaica, and good evening to UIC crowd, and good evening to everyone in Jamaica. How you all doing? This evening, we're continuing our live broadcasts across Jamaica and across the Eastern Caribbean, and into everyone who is listening around the world. And thank you all for tuning in. Mr. Patterson is not with us tonight, but we have two lovely ladies here who are going to accompany me, and we're going to bring you a video that we want everyone to watch. And we're going to begin the broadcast by everyone watching this video. And the topic of tonight's broadcast for the War on Humanity is climate change and depopulation. And we're going to discuss this and bring some pertinent facts and figures for you to discuss amongst yourselves and understand exactly what's going on in the global arena. Okay? So here we go. Watch this video, and then we're going to take it away.
In 1972, The Limits to Growth was published by the Club of Rome. The book suggested that swift human depopulation would save the planet. In 2018, The Limits to Growth co-author Dennis Meadows explained how we need to murder billions of people.
The planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. That's, unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So, but if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have it. But we want to have freedom, and we want to have a high sentence, so we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7, so we have to get back down. I hope that this can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal.
Overpopulation is a lie. With old-school sustainable farming and the end of big government, there is enough room on this planet for several billion. And while the Earth's climate does change, most of what we are seeing is contrived. The fires breaking out all across the world are being blamed on climate change, even though hundreds of arsonists have been caught starting them. Most recently, 79 people were arrested for starting fires in Greece. Direct energy weapons, or DEWs, are able to start fires from above and can utilize microwave technology to burn homes from within. In 2013, the mainstream media reported that we were able to make rain and lightning.
I mean, lasers? Really? To change the weather?
By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
This week in Michigan, residents reported a strange strobe-like lightning. The event was captured on weather radar, which showed a very unnatural-looking spiral.
That's some conspiracy theory shit right there.
Making it rain has been possible for decades, and we have come a long way since then. With the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, known as HAARP, we can now create hurricanes, and we can control their direction with next-generation weather radar transmitters, known as NEXRAD. By building up an electromagnetic charge and dispersing it underground as direct current VLF waves, or very low frequency waves, the NEXRAD radar transmitters are able to trigger earthquakes. Earthquakes and explosives can trigger tsunamis. These are the technologies that we know of, and that only leaves volcanoes and tornadoes. Funded by Peter Thiel, AVE Tech Energy Corporation began work in 2012 on a device to produce a 130-foot tall tornado. And a former U.S. intelligence officer recently told State of the Nation that the U.S. has already triggered a volcano. Climate change is not only a hoax, it's a depopulation program, and our entire government is going along with it. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese. Thank you for watching the latest Greg Reese Report. Be sure to go to Reese Report.
Great. Well, that pretty much explains everything what's happening that we're seeing across the Caribbean region. And while we may not be experiencing a whole host of wildfires and so on and so forth, we do have the world's best known climate fraud activists in the Prime Minister of Barbados, who jet sets around the world in a private jet, burning hundreds of tons of carbon fuels and contributing to the so-called carbon footprint. But that's not to be discussed at all. We mustn't discuss that. We have to discuss the climate narrative that she likes to talk about. So at the end of the day, we've just had a geoengineered climate spin event happen right here in Barbados that destroyed the national archives of this country. Right here in Barbados, destroyed all the vestry records in the National Archives building in a geoengineered electrical storm. Now, this morning on radio, on 246BajunVibesRadio.com, which is the radio program that I do host every Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., that would be 10 a.m., that would be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Jamaica time. I explained the entire reasoning why this happened and how it happened. And the reason that we know that this was a geoengineered event specifically designed to cause that incident was that we monitor the electromagnetic frequency radiation that happens from each Caribbean island by satellite. And we saw around 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon an increase of 300% on the electromagnetic frequency spectrum in Barbados. And we have high altitude active auroral research programs here in Barbados, 2 sites, one with a laser beam, one with electromagnetic frequency directional antennas. So we had a 300% increase in electromagnetic frequency, and a thunderstorm was created just west of the island, just offshore. Nothing happened. There was no thunder, no lightning, just big thundercloud, went up to 40,000 feet altitude, then started to move east over the island in the anti-trade winds. Almost around precisely midnight, there was one flash of lightning, a massive peal of thunder, and the archives building caught fire. Right. So now that we understand precisely what is actually happening in the weaponization of weather, because there's no climate change. You cannot change God's created climate. That is the one thing that they cannot do. They cannot change a climate. What they can try to make us believe is that the climate is changing, so that's why we're having bad weather. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is weather manipulation on an industrial scale in order to cause events, to hide either criminal activity or to cause a crime to be committed, which can then be spun to the public that this is a climate change incident. That is what is happening. Now, I'm not sure what the administration in Jamaica is actually saying on this with regard to climate change, but I know that they are towing the line with regard to the climate change narrative because it brings funding. It's all about the money. Okay? And Mr. Holness is probably in full knowledge of the fact that it is a hoax, but he is powerless to do anything about it simply because the Prime Minister of Barbados is the regional Caribbean dictator selected by the World Economic Forum and the Club of Rome, of which she is a member, as well as the World Bank and the World Economic Forum. That is a fact. She is a member of the Club of Rome. She sits on the board of the World Bank. She sits on the board of the Inter-American Development Bank. She sits on the board of the Bank of International Settlements. And she runs the show with regard to how they want the Caribbean region to be manipulated and frameworks and structures put in place with regard to climate change, medical, and what have you. Okay, she's the gopher.
Mr. Corbin, it seems that we are on the precipice of human like the world as we know it has dramatically changed because obviously these people over a period of time have been planning for the destruction of humanity. Most of us are not yet awakened to that fact, but as you can see from the COVID experience in the last 3 years, they have managed to kill millions of people, and it has gone undetected. When it comes to the climate change and everything, we have real scientists who are being suppressed. What are the things that we need to do today to make uh, to have a counteraction against what is happening? Because people seems not to be ready to be confronted with this reality.
Well, that's a very, very interesting question and a very pertinent question, and it's also an extremely serious question to consider. And the reason for this is because the reason that it is so serious to consider is that you have the manipulation of weather that is now weaponized to manipulate economic interest in the best interest of the cabal. In other words, just take, for instance, look at Haiti. Haiti was a classic example. The former President Moise, who was then assassinated for not allowing or refusing to allow COVID-19 bioweapons injections into the country, his country was his Port-au-Prince was destroyed by a magnitude 8 earthquake, and then he was assassinated.
Wow.
Geoengineering is now being weaponized to destroy or to manipulate and to coerce or to blackmail or to extort the compliance of global governments. Now, as you would remember, just over, I think, a year and a half ago, we had a massive earthquake in Turkey. And I wrote an article to the Associated Press with regard to this. And I will read this for all of our listeners so that we are understanding precisely what we're dealing with. I'm just going to pull it up here, and I will read it for the listening public so that they understand precisely what is happening. I'm just going to find it here. Just bear with me 1 second. Right. Okay, here we go. Now, I address this to my friends at the Associated Press as well as the Climate Intelligence Organization that is based in South Africa. Dear friends, I am of the informed opinion that if we look closely at the presiding meteorological data just hours prior to the Turkey earthquake, and also video footage being shown minutes before the first P wave, primary wave, we will see concentrated electrical storm activity in the immediate region. Why is this? What we have witnessed here is a perfectly clear example of a military geopolitical weapon known as High Altitude Auroral Research Program, HAARP, employed in the precise manner for which it was intended: massive infrastructure destruction and paralysis of a regional operational capability that is non-compliant to US-Israel foreign policy directives. Why do I say this? HAARP, designed in the late 1950s, has been steadily developed as a geopolitical weapon of US foreign policy under the control of the US military's irregular warfare program. The US integrated HAARP into its overall global foreign policy agenda following the adoption of a combined force proposal strategy published under the name of Full Spectrum Dominance. I will publish a link into the chat for those who wish to see that. What has just happened in northern Syria, southwestern Turkey, is a definitive and clear geopolitical message to Turkey's Erdogan, Syria's Assad, and to Russia, in a demonstration of what has now become classic US action when nation states do not follow US perceptions of regarded or required collaboration. The resorting to destruction of civilian cities and infrastructure is not only a criminal act, but only furthers civilian suffering and resentment while driving an even larger wedge between the divided political entities involved. The US has been integrally involved in northern Syria illegally in the last decade and has systematically engaged in resource theft, economic assassination, and military destabilization that has disenfranchised both Syrian and Turkish minorities and promotes terrorist activity. HAARP operates by creating a focused, high frequency pulse of electromagnetic energy that can be precisely targeted to within a specific area of less than 2 square miles. How does it do this? High frequency electromagnetic pulses can be emitted from transmission stations located in other countries within 2,500 to 4,000 miles away from the target area. Coordinated energy pulses emissions from these emission stations uses the Earth's ionosphere to act as the amplifier and redirection medium and can be focused to arrive at a specific geolocation using combined triangulation, the same method used to tracking radio station locations. What causes the damage? We know the Earth is surrounded by a magnetosphere. Thus, the Earth itself is also made up of active electromagnetic spectrum frequencies, and all the organic material of its composition are respondent to specific frequencies. Imagine the layers of an onion, and you will understand the Earth's magnetic spectrum. Therefore, when electromagnetic frequencies are of high concentration into specific geographic destinations, you will have massive vibration or reaction of the Earth's geomagnetic spectrum at that location. HAARP has been focused and its intensity combined very precisely to create whatever geomagnetic vibration reaction is desired. Hence, massive earthquakes that can happen very quickly and are focused within characteristically smaller areas. The telltale signs of HAARP event are usually sudden electrical storms that seem to appear out of nowhere, with lightning flashes and strange warming of the air as the electrical impulse builds to strike capacity. Once the correct geomagnetic frequency has been achieved, the Earth's corresponding frequency reacts violently, causing massive releases of energy that mimic earthquake P-wave activity so precisely as to be almost indistinguishable from true geophysical subduction or geological fault slippage events. Another telltale sign of HAARP earthquake events is their relatively shallow origins, ranging from depths of 65 to 10 miles. The shallower the depth of origin, the smaller the geographic effect area will be. Massive regional events spanning over 80 to 100 miles across have been much deeper origins, typically beyond 80 to 100 miles deep. HAARP is of such destructive power that it can be used and is being used to usher in the global fraudulent narrative of climate change in order to propel the dystopian narrative of the New World Order and the criminal agenda of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030. HAARP is a weapon of mass destruction and needs to be destroyed with targeted detonation and or conventional weapons. There are currently 16 HAARP emission stations around the world. All need to be destroyed before more war crimes of horrific dimensions are carried out. There we have it. So,
Mr.
I think,
Corbin,
yes, ma'am.
so it seems like we definitely conclude that we are all under attack. We
Absolutely.
know that we're being attacked from many different angles. We're being attacked biologically. Now you're saying that we're being attacked with weather, the weather.
That's correct.
We definitely have a psyop operation where you have our government not being truthful to the population. So
Hmm.
the question is, what what does humanity do with all this information? Because it seems like our infrastructures have completely failed us. Our government are not reflective of the contract between the citizens and the government. What do we do as citizens? Because we know these things are happening, but yet they continue to happen at exponential rate. They're continuing to, as the man said in the video earlier, they want to see only 1 billion people on the earth, and they have made no uncertainty about their intent to kill, and they are killing us.
Hmm.
What do we do? How do we fight against us as Jamaicans, especially, who seems to be so unaware of their government's action? The fact that the Jamaican statistic is showing that there's a low birth rate, and much of the Jamaican people are dying out. These are serious crimes and against humanity. But yet, who is to be held accountable, and how do we go about holding these people accountable for these atrocities?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And I think we need to start first by non compliance. That's the first step. Massive non compliance across the entire spectrum of the economy, where not a single government regulation, not a single government policy, nothing that the government demands of the people is obeyed or adhered to. It's a difficult thing to do simply because you have to realize that with 300 years of social conditioning, to accept the maritime corporation system where we believe that governments have our best interests at heart and that they're the to end all authority, we must understand that non-compliance removes their power. If you cannot get the people to do what you want them to do, you have no power. And this was very clearly demonstrated in the very low COVID-19 biological weapon injection uptake, despite all of the lies and the propaganda put in place by Mr. Crackhead Tufton and all the rest of the cabal that he had behind him. And I would say tonight to Mr. Christopher Tufton, you will be brought to justice in your own country. And I would say to Mr. Holness as well, you will be brought to justice by your people, and they will do with you what they feel, what they please. And I think that Sprague Benz said it very, very well and very pertinently. He said, we will remove your seed from the land. That is what needs to be done. Because when you remove the seed from the land, you remove the evil, you remove the root of the evil. And no one can influence the growth of evil again because it's not there anymore. Non-compliance first, then removal of the seed. And that is the people of Jamaica, the people of the Caribbean in every single territory need to stand up, and they need to walk into Parliament, and they need to arrest every single one of the politicians. And everybody needs to be jailed indefinitely. And I draw this example of Mr. Ibrahim Traore, who is the new president of Burkina Faso. He welded the prison doors shut. So not only were you arrested, you were jailed, and then the doors were welded shut. Okay? So if you want to get out, somebody has to cut you out. The most important...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Right. So I wanted to say that in Jamaica, we have the green and the orange. And they have been able over all the years to use the colors and separate us. So it's how do we move to a place where we get them together to understand really what is happening, because even this conversation we're having, a lot of them do not get it. They're not truly understand the seriousness of what is happening. So how do we unite them? I understand that as soon as UIC takes over, we'll be in a better position to make them understand. But as it is right now, how do we get it into their heads for them to understand it has nothing to do with no green or no orange?
Exactly. And the thing is, Jamaica is unique in its position with regard to making this happen, because you have a very unique indigenous group of people in Jamaica who understand perfectly this sovereignty paradigm, and that is our Maroons.
Yeah.
There must be dialogue with the Maroon fraternity where they make you understand what the meaning of sovereignty and independent government of their people happens. This is absolutely crucial. If the UIC or any other government is going to make progress for Jamaica in order to rid the country of the hegemony that controls both parties, that keeps the people divided, talk to the Maroons.
Yeah.
These guys are going to put you right. They're going to put you
Mhm.
on a footing to sovereignty. They're going to put you on a footing for unity. And they're going to
Yeah.
put you on a footing of understanding the cultural diversity
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
brings inclusivity of our population. This is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial. This shouldn't be a single day in discussion or debate. In my opinion, I would actually leave Barbados right now if I had the means to travel. I would leave Barbados on the next flight out of here in order to be able to meet with those guys and said,
Yeah.
gentlemen, I need an education. I want you to educate me. Educate me. I need an education. I want to know the historical factors. I want to know where the cultural side is coming in. I want to see exactly how this can influence a united Caribbean.
The other day I was having a conversation with someone, and I said, look at it. They took our culture from us and told us about cow jump over moon and all kind of foolishness, you know, and who discovered Jamaica and a whole lot of crap. And they keep on putting it into the system and taking out um Jamaica's history. So if you're even in a family situation, even in a family situation, and I can speak for myself. I do not know much about my grandmother. I do not know a lot from mama, her sisters and maybe another auntie and grandaunt and all of that. I do not have apart from mama and my siblings. Me no know much about me mama siblings and stuff. So little things creep in. They do little things. And they cause you to not have sit and talk and have that chat about, back then
Mhm,
what used to happen. And
mhm,
is when me my mid-40s that I asked mama what she knows about slavery, because this is not something that we talk about at home, you know. So like you said, going to the Maroons and understanding where you're coming from, understanding what happened to your foreparents,
mhm.
understanding what you were robbed of,
Mhm.
really makes
Absolutely.
a difference. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I said in my radio talk this morning, because I brought this subject up this morning in my radio talk, um, we are under the impression that we as Africans or Irish, in my case, my family arrived here in Barbados in 1685 through forced deportation from Ireland. Oliver Cromwell was the ethnic cleansing of Ireland. If you
Mm.
want, if you want a clear history of white indentured servants being brought to the Caribbean, you can read a book called To Hell or Barbados. It's available on Amazon. But as I said in my talk this morning, we believe as African origin individuals that we arrived here on slave ships. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Maroons know, and they have the evidence to prove that they were here long before the British, the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, or the Spaniards ever turned up. The last people to turn up in the Caribbean were the British. They were the last to turn up in the Caribbean. The Portuguese were in the Caribbean long before the British did.
And
Okay.
I just want to point out because I recall that the US government did a press conference in, I think, 2016. And
Hmm.
this is why Jamaicans and the Caribbean and Black people as a whole has to really pay attention. Because in that press conference, the government of the United States said that for the first time on record on the US Census, that their population is dwindling. It's fallen below the census. And
Mm.
that the African population is the fastest growing population on the earth. And the question they ended the press conference with is, what are we going to do about it? So they're
Mm.
under the impression that our population is outpacing
Yeah.
theirs, and
Yeah.
they do intend to do something about it. And our people need to be aware, particularly with their vaccines. You have Kennedy, who spoke about what the vaccines are doing to Black children.
Hmm.
And there is the saying that, You move from weapon to weapon. You started off with machetes. You went into bullets and whatnot. You move into bombs, and now vaccines are the new biological weapon of mass destruction. So we are truly at a crossroad, and we need to wake up as citizens because our very lives are at stake.
Absolutely. I completely and totally agree with this because
Hmm.
this is a global depopulation agenda on an
Yeah.
industrial scale, and it is multifaceted. It is not only biological weapon injections, it is the use of geoengineering and weather events to destroy infrastructure, food crops, the sustainability of life itself. And also, we have the chemtrails, which are poisoning the atmosphere, which stop bees from pollinating fruits and crops, also affecting animals because they graze and so on. They get sick, then we get sick when we eat the animals. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, we have the actual implementation of a biological weapon that can be aerosolized
Hmm.
and spread person to person to person to person. And this is happening right here in Barbados, where aerosolized particles from vaccinated individuals being shed on to people. And it's probably happening in Jamaica as well. It's probably happening across the region. Shedding is extremely real, very, very real, because it only takes for you to, and I draw a classic example. If you are a husband and you decided to take a COVID-19 injection, but your wife decided, oh, well, it's not for me. I'm not going to do it. But yet you have sexual contact. You've just killed her. It's a buy one, get one free. That's what it is. That's really what it is. And for all of our young people out there, I implore our young people or our students and our young people who are at that age where, the whole metabolic change in their bodies is going through and the sexual urges and so on and so forth. Be warned. You can be well 1 minute and a walking dead the next. Because if you have intercourse with a vaccinated individual, particularly if they have had the 2 shots and the booster, your symptoms and the technology that has been injected into their body is transferred directly to you. And because your body has less resistance because it's now seeing it for the first time, you will be violently sick.
I- Is there any help for those who have been vaccinated? I know that there has been some attempt to, because so much of the population has taken this vaccine that it's basically affecting the entire planet.
Yes.
Except fortunately for the Africans. And now I understand that they're going after the Africans. They're having conferences on ways to vaccinate. They're not using COVID as the go to anymore. They're looking at vaccinating the Africans with malaria. But for
Mhm.
those among us who have already taken this so called vaccine, are there any help for them? Because they run the risk of contaminating us in many multiple ways, because in the water system, for
Mhm.
instance,
Yep.
that's ways that we can be infected by recyclable water as we use here in Canada.
That's correct. Well, I think the most important thing that we must understand with regard to getting help for this
Hmm.
is keeping the body's immune system at peak operational level. Now, if you believe that you've come into contact with a vaccinated individual and you are starting to express some sort of symptoms, aches, pains, sore throat, respiratory illness or whatever it is, and so on, and you believe that this could be as a result of shedding, I have always advised that natural herbs are the only way to get rid of this. Our Heavenly Father has designed the earth with natural herbs and healing as being available at all times to us. And one of the things that I myself, who I come into contact regularly with vaccinated individuals because they're seeking help,
Yeah.
I treat myself with oregano oil and I treat myself with very strong cinnamon, clove, and the extract from a wood, the called cassia. Quassia. It's Quassia. Cassia. I think it's available in Jamaica. I think it grows naturally in Jamaica. But the oregano oil, strong cinnamon, clove, and cassia mix is one of the very powerful antioxidants as well as parasite elimination from the body. You have to remember that the COVID-19 biological weapon injections are designed around molecular technology that is designed to operate in the body as a parasite. The parasite the parasite in the spike protein gets into the cell and rewires the cell so that it now becomes a manufacturer of the spike protein. And that happens in every cell of the body. So you are creating massive infection as well as shutting down the immune system. And the way that this works, the reason why shedding was first discovered is that when we understand where shedding is, lots of people ask, where does this shedding come from? How was this arrived at in the pharmaceutical industry? Well, we take a look back at the pesticide control industry of the mid 1970s, and Monsanto and DuPont collaborated together on creating a pesticide for termites and various other pests, which could be spread on the ground as a thin powder or a liquid. The pests would crawl over it, become infected with this nanotechnology that was sticking to them. They would then crawl back to the actual colony, and through the process of shedding and transinfection, the entire colony would be infected and die. COVID-19 biological weapons injections operate on precisely that principle. They are designed to be self-spreading. You inject 5 people, you will kill 70. That's
perfect
how it's
weapon.
designed. That's correct. It's a biological weapon. And it has been designed as a biological weapon by Dr. Ralph Barrick of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, who expressly detailed the fact that SARS-CoV-2 is poised for human emergence. And his actual work with regard to it was bioweapons enabling technology.
My understanding is, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Claudia.
So,
Mrs. Claudia.
can we just, this is really very interesting. And so for the Jamaican audience, I just want to go back over from you started about the shedding. So you're saying that the shedding comes about through is it only through having sex, or
No.
what other means?
Physical contact.
Physical contact. You can kiss somebody. You can just hold that. We've just had the death of an 8-month-old child here in Barbados that was killed by shedding from his father.
So he took the vaccine.
The father took the vaccine,
right?
Shed it to the child. The child started to show symptoms of illness. The first thing the parents did, they took it to the polyclinic and they gave him 4 childhood vaccines all at the same time. Within 3 weeks, he was gone. Accelerated.
What I have observed with these people is that they do tell you exactly what they plan to do, perhaps a year and in advance. And they did came out and wrote articles that they plan to put the mRNA, which is the technology which creates the spike protein, into the childhood vaccines.
That's
and
correct.
So parents has to be, one of the things that I observe here in Canada is that the public health system now is suddenly very curious and interested in going into the school system on a monthly basis with the the behavior to vaccinate the children, and parents are totally unaware of what's happening. So most of these vaccines that was once thought of as childhood vaccines have been transformed without parents' knowledge.
That's correct.
And
The-
so,
So I sorry. I really want people to understand what we are trying to say here. Um so the shedding is through any means, any form of physical contact. You can get you're saying that they help me understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You take the, is it the injection, the vaccine you say, and then it um multiply in the cells. Could you explain that part again for me, please?
okay, so what happens is that the entire formulation of the so-called vaccine, the biological weapon, has been designed with a component called a lipid nanoparticle. This is nanoscale technology. This lipid nanoparticle contains the pathogen that is put into the formulation of the vaccine along with other toxins and chemicals. When it is injected into the body, the lipid nanoparticle actually opens and allows the pathogen to penetrate the cells of the body. It then rewires or reconfigures or retranscribes the action of the cell. Instead of producing the regular antibodies that would be fighting an infection, the cell now turns into a infection factory. It's now manufacturing the spike protein. And if you have all of the body's cells slowly starting to be reconfigured, you're creating a level of infection and a level of inflammation within the body that is uncontrolled. And
So
then
war start inside.
precisely.
So,
And
yeah.
this is called the slow kill method, because a year and a half after the injection, everything is fine, no problem. You don't know what is happening in your body because you feel fine. Nothing's happened. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, one day, you have a stroke. Where does that come from? When you do an MRI, you see that blood clots are all over the body. You've got turbo cancer in the kidneys, turbo cancers in the liver, the spleen, the brain, everywhere. And this is exactly what we're seeing, turbo cancers, because the spike protein, as well as the formulation of the COVID-19 biological weapon injection, and specifically a particular chemical known as SV40,
Yeah.
shuts down the part of the immune system that fights that infection. You can look at your immune system as little mops, okay, that are mopping up the infection all around. They're killed off. They're shut down entirely. So the
Serious.
infection just keeps
Yeah.
rolling. Now,
Nothing to, yeah.
imagine your immune system as a five force military operation. So you've got the Marines, you've got the Air Force, you've got the Navy, you've got the Army, and you've got the National Guard. Okay? What happens with a COVID-19 biological weapon injection into the body? You take out the Navy and the Army in one shot. From one shot, just one injection. That's 25% of your entire immune resistance and capability is gone. The second shot takes out the Marines and the Air Force. And the booster kills the National Guard. You have no more immune system. Your immune system is dormant.
Right.
It goes completely dormant.
Let,
After that, your body is just on free fall.
let me see if I could explain this another way
Mm,
from my understanding. Is that the human body has developed a set of immune system against everything it's ever come into contact with
Mhm.
from the time of your forefathers. And so when you come into a virus per se, the body's ability to defend you against the elements, the natural elements, is based on the immune system from all the various contact that you had since you were a child, your forefathers had, etc. Now, what this mRNA technology does, in other words, is that it goes into your system and change the mapping of your
Mhm.
your immune system and reprogram the code and the awareness and replicate the same. Say you have the alphabet of A, B, C, D all the way to Z, right? And that recognizes all the different viruses and can target, hey, this is a coal, let me defend myself against the coal. In this case, this mRNA technology goes in and replicates itself against your natural immune system, but only instead of A, B, C, D, D, it produces only A. So now you
Mhm.
come into contact with the average cold, the average flu, your body no longer has the intelligence and the ability to defend itself. So
Mhm.
anything now is prone to take you out because you have reduced and it stripped your immune system completely of everything that nature, the law of the Almighty, has provided.
Mhm.
Because this diabolical group of people who understood the science decided to hijack the body's mechanism to defend itself while they stood aside and watched us die from the common element without taking any responsibility. But I have good news for them. If they think that they're going to remain in the caves that they built to hide out, and they think that they're going to stay out of the limelight while all this is happening, I have news. They went after my family, my friends, my community. I fortunately did not go along with that program, and I personally will not be lying down while all this is happening. No one has power to dictate and to control life. We're all given an opportunity to live here on this planet equally. Whatever you choose to do with your life, that's on you. But when it comes to telling my family, my loved one, that you, and this is a very Eurocentric attitude, where they have always gone around the planet dictating
Mhm.
what goes and what who lives, who dies. We're going to take back the power and we're going to hold you responsible, and you're not going to be able to hide in those caves because you went after our loved ones. You attacked us, and we will not forget and we will not roll over while you continue to live in your mansions. That's my news for these people who have gone after my family.
I
My
totally
uncle,
agree.
my uncle just died. My uncle found out that in January he had cancer, and by March he died, and he was in his 50s, right? That's a terrible cancer. I have several loved ones who was took out. My very close friend, a teacher, 6 weeks after taking the Pfizer vaccine, she had a heart attack. So every one of our lives have been touched and have been, and we know what has happened, and we know who have done it. And those of us who are still asleep, we will not stop until we wake every last one of them up, because they talk about 1 billion. They want 1 billion on the planet, and that they have about 500,000 of them. These are the elite that are doing all this to humanity. They think because they have money, which is the wealth and the resources that we were blessed with, they now have authority and power to dictate who lives and who dies. They have stolen all the world's resources, they have stolen all the wealth, and they have enslaved humanity. And now they're asking us to die. That's not going to happen. We are all going to die together, one way or the other, but they will not remain in their shadows while they attacked us in this manner. That's my personal take on it.
I completely agree, and I've got an analogy. I've got an analogy for how to deal with these people, right? And the most important thing is that when we deal with this kind of thing, I remember um, I remember a very good friend of mine who is sadly no longer with us, and he said to me, "It doesn't matter to them how many people they kill. What really matters to them is when the people who have survived come after them with cold, hard steel and gunfire. That's
They will
what
not
really
hide.
matters to them." Yeah, that's
They
what
will not
really
hide.
matters to them. Yeah.
And and
So what?
and, and the NID program and all the programs that they're put in to have surveillance over all of our lives. We're going to handle this right in their face. They are cowards who hide behind closed door and do the cowardly act. But
Mhm.
I'm here and my face is here because I'm not afraid. And we're going to confront them directly. The way they've attacked us, we will not hide and we will not be in the shadow the way they, the cowards, have stayed under the surface, crawl and crumble under the earth, building caves across the planet and streets of roads of and hiding all the foods with all the natural seeds. They've done everything to hide away from their responsibility, but high or low, whether it's on earth or in hell, they will pay a heavy price for what they've done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Amen to that.
Um, Sorry.
Go ahead.
So one concern I have is, um, or I should say, first let me say that in spite of all they are doing, everything is not doom and gloom,
No.
because there are ways we can rid our bodies of
Mhm.
what has been injected in there. That is one. Two, my fear for my country is, or my country people is, all of this happened. No, before the vaccine came, you had persons when you tell them about it. Oh, I just, people like tell story pan the platforms, etc. So it came, and you realize, I never lie to people. Them I tell. It came, it happened, and it was so bad that even government was paying persons to take it. That is how desperate they were. And if you have any sense at all, you must read between the lines and see what was happening. However, it is going to come again,
Mhm.
and my country people are going to take it. They are going to sit and allow government to tell them that it's okay. Whether it be 2% or 10%, it should be 0%. That is what we are saying. We want to stand up. We must unite, and we must tell government, say, me not take no foreign body nothing in my body.
Well,
If
one
I
of
know
Exactly.
what the Almighty put in it, me no want no man-made nothing. Come pushing on my body if you could tell me about your prevent. No, me no want you prevent
and
nothing. Make me
that's
there.
Mrs. Claudia, that's one way to take back the control because the medical system has come absolutely failed
Yeah,
humanity
Mhm.
on
yeah.
such a large scale. And I have to tell you, when I see all this is happening, I began my research and I started listening to the clever doctors. And my son was one of them that they tried to take out in the hospital like so many others, but I was prepared. And one of the things that I did was when he was in the hospital, he has a compromised immune system, but he was tested negative for COVID, but yet they put him on the COVID outbreak. But because I was prepared, I saw many people in the similar situation whose loved ones didn't make it out of the hospital because they were not prepared. I knew from listening to the smart doctors, the good conscious doctors, I had to have vitamin D, especially for those of us in North America, blacks. And the darker you are, you need a 50,000 IU. They know that they've kept it from us. We need the quercetin, we need zinc, we need vitamin C. And because I knew what I knew, my son, because they kept him in that ward, and I said, no, there's such a thing called freedom of information. When you threaten these people, you said, if you do what you do, I'm going to hold you accountable with a Freedom of Information Act immediately. So it's a matter of learning to change course. They are speaking to you in a manner that you're illiterate to their system. Once you become aware of how you have to remove your dependency on the medical system, learn how to treat your body. You have so one of the ways that they got rid of a lot of the COVID patients in the hospital is because of the respiratory system. This virus, this bio weapon that they released on the population created a lot of inflammation in the lungs. And so you have liquid steroids. I'm not a doctor and I'm not proclaiming to be one, but these are the things when they jeopardize my loved one, I listen to the Canadian doctors and those who speak truth. And I applied those principles. And the doctors themselves, when they said to me, Mrs. Walker, there's nothing more we can do for your son. His organs are shutting down. My son in his weakest state said, I'm sorry, Mom. I don't think I'll make it out of the hospital this time. I said, don't you worry, son. We got you out of that COVID ward that they hijacked you in, and now we're going to apply the right medicine. And in less than 24 hours, my son oxygen moved from a low 60, 50, his hemoglobin shutting down, to 94. The doctors were all shocked because we did not depend on their system. We learned the way to treat the body. So we are going to have to unlearn our dependency on a system that has told us that they has no desire in protecting us. Their principle is to follow order, whatever mandate is being issued to them by their government, and at the expense of the lives of the people they swore an oath to protect. So we cannot rely on such systems anymore. That's one way, because Mr. Corbyn earlier said that we're going to go through mass non-compliance.
Hmm.
One of the best ways I've learned is to start learning about your own body and to teach your family member how to become their own doctor, their own medical authorities, because the medical system has been working, and I will tell you, for over 100 years. We have the Rockefeller who has bought up the medical institution. So the very devils that is attacking us are the ones who are in control of our medical institutions. So we have to step away from those institutions, and at the very least start to take our own care in our own hands, because they do not have our interest. They are profiting from our demise.
Absolutely. You're
So true.
100% correct.
Mhm.
100% correct. I think it's very, very incumbent upon all of us across the Caribbean region. And I would encourage um, those of you who are listening to this and watching this program across the region, think carefully about exactly how your body operates. Your body wants to survive. Your body is designed to keep you alive indefinitely.
Mhm.
Your body is designed with the spiritual energy to raise your consciousness to the level where you become your own physician. Your body wants to heal itself, it can heal itself, and you can survive whatever is thrown against you. However, if we do not understand that the human body needs the minerals that are required for that longevity, and we decide that we're going to eat Babylon food, okay, then we open ourselves up to massive compromise of our bodily integrity. And remember, bodily integrity comprises of three core things. Number one, the most important, the spiritual energy. Number two, the heart and the mind are controlled by that spiritual energy. And number three, the consciousness of understanding the first two bring about complete health in the paradigm of your existence. Absolutely important. We live in a society, particularly here in Barbados, where if somebody sneezes, me gotta go doctor. No, sorry. We have to get back to the fact that when we do feel listless, when we do feel tired, when we do feel we want to boost, we go to nature.
Absolutely.
We go to nature. Okay? My grandmother
Nature.
said, right, my grandmother used to say, Fred, go and pick me a handful of fever grass there. Come back inside, throw it in a pot with some mango leaves. Okay, she would sit and sip that. And, 20 minutes later, she's back up. Okay? Go to nature. That's where the healing is.
Yep.
It cannot be found in a pharmacy, it cannot be found in a hospital, and it certainly can't be found in any criminal doctor's lawyer's office, because most of these guys are being paid to facilitate your demise. Okay?
And we must protect our children with our lives. They are the
Yeah.
future, and they are now being attacked. The womb to the first footstep. We must protect and defend our children. For them to have um, uh, taken such abuse of our trust and now is put in something that has not been tested. I think they tested for 20 years. They've been working with this mRNA and was not successful with it. For 6 months, the mouse that they tried this mRNA technology on, after 6 months, the mouses are all dead. They only legalized this under the Emergency Act, and now they're saying that they have gone so far as to be putting it in the childhood vaccines without any public debate and discussion. That's atrocious, and they have to be held accountable. But in the meantime, parents has to be more vigilant than ever. Our trust in the system has to be on another level, because they are abusing that trust and they are killing our children.
Absolutely, absolutely. When we look at when we made contact with Dr. Anna Mahalcia, and she explained to us and showed us the evidence that all the childhood vaccines, every single one of the childhood vaccines that have been manufactured for the childhood schedule since 2020, have the exact same nanoparticle technology as the original COVID-19 bioweapon.
Yeah.
That's what killed that
Yeah.
8-month-old child here in Barbados. When they gave him his 4 shots, he was injected with the same nanotechnology that his father had shed to him. So he had a double whammy. Not only was he dealing with shedding, but he had 4 shots that has accelerated, shut down his immune system, and killed him. And the parents refused to believe this. Refused to believe this.
I tell you.
When the autopsy was done, the autopsy record came back from the doctor that said massive bronchitis, viral bronchitis. When we go to page 38 on the Pfizer adverse reactions and events document, that document that was released by Pfizer with all the adverse events from the COVID-19 shots, what do we find? Viral bronchitis is a side effect.
Wow.
Okay? That child was killed by a biological weapon that his father had been injected with, and then the 4 childhood vaccines that he was injected with subsequently. This is the problem we have. We have brainwashed citizens who believe, let me run down to the polyclinic here and give him these shots, maybe he get better. But now they've buried the child because he's been killed, assassinated by a biological weapon in the hands of people who believe that they're doing the right thing. We cannot allow this to continue.
Pfizer recently came out and admitted that their vaccines does not do what they claims it was supposed to do. Moderna came out and retracted their claims on the effectiveness of their vaccine. I believe Johnson and Johnson was the first one to have. Yet we
Sure.
have no accountability from the government, no discussion. The amount of money they spent, the amount of propaganda they froze. These are war criminals, and we're going to be dealing with them on our own time. In due course, they will be held accountable. But in the meantime, we have to pay attention as parents, as loved ones, that the healthcare system is not our friend. They're not
Mhm.
there to protect us. In fact, they're in collusion with our government to take our lives because they want us to be depopulated. And currently, UIC is the only political party in Jamaica who is standing with the Jamaican people. If it was not for the UIC, we would have a massive amount of population vaccinated. In
Yeah.
Canada, Canada has over 84% of its population vaccinated. That's how effective they were, because there were no one at the time standing for the people
Right.
of Canada. But the UIC, thankfully, in Jamaica, stood with the Jamaican people, the only political party um, run by our president, Mr.
That's
Joseph Patterson, stood with the people, and for that reason, Jamaica has one of the smallest population vaccinated population in the world. So
Yep.
that's a testimony for the Jamaican people to be aware who is with you, who is your friend. Your
exactly.
lives were at stake when UIC defended you from this mass depopulation agenda.
Hmm.
And got locked up for it. Got locked
Yeah,
up and still has a court case going on because of that. He didn't
Yep.
have to do all of that. He didn't.
Yep.
He could have just stood there and not taken it, and but he saw that it was wrong, and he knew that a lot of persons didn't understand what was happening. So him step out with him team, and when they see how effective he was, them send police to gas him and all kind of things, and then lock him up so as to shut him up. You know.
Well, they're not going to shut everybody up, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
no.
the tide has changed. The entire tide has changed, and the wind is blowing in the right direction, where
I
people are
think
now fully awake with regard to the situation, and awakening even more every single day. And one
yeah.
of the things that we must warn our Jamaican people about, and across the Caribbean region: do not, under any circumstances, allow anyone to inject you with anything. And if you are told that you need a blood transfusion, you demand that they be taken from a family member that is not vaccinated, because the blood banks in every Caribbean country have been contaminated.
Ah,
And
Every Caribbean country has contaminated blood banks, and they can do nothing about it.
mhm.
chlorophyll is your best friend too.
That's
With the
correct.
proper amount of chlorophyll,
Yep.
you may not even need to go into that whole state of
Yep.
transfusing blood from anyone. So learn
Exactly.
more about the natural elements and how you can really become your best doctors.
Exactly. And the application of simple energy building techniques. Okay, energy building techniques. The conscious focus on healing, the consciousness of the mind on healing, where you focus your central energy of your mind on healing and survival. This is self-applicating. This is self. You can do it yourself. You have something wrong, you're not feeling well, you can focus your energy field on healing. The
And the sun.
spiritual, yeah, the spiritual energy, and helped by going outside in sunshine and so on, the spiritual energy, and raising your consciousness to the point where the body heals itself. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. You don't need to go into any gurus, you don't need to go and buy any gadgets, you don't need to go and do nothing like that. All you need is to go outside, take your shoes off, reconnect with earth.
Yes.
Earthing. Bring the earth's energy into your body. Focus your mind on healing, and raise your consciousness of the understanding of what earth can do for you, and seek the nature herbs that have allowed us to survive as a species since Noah's flood.
And stop putting so much of your faith in man. Have
Yes, exactly.
put your faith in the
Mhm.
divine power who is secure us with the food of the land. These very
Exactly.
same people are the people who are interfering with the seeds from the
Mhm.
Almighty. We're blessed with seeds, and yet they go ahead and they remove the seeds. These are not natural people. They're not natural man. They're anti-nature, and everything in their agenda is anti your well-being, your humanity. They go against everything that is lawful by the laws of nature. And so go back to nature, go back to your spiritual self, and take faith in that divine order of things.
Exactly. Exactly. Well,
Can't go wrong.
That's all I have for this evening. So,
Yeah.
if anybody
Super.
has anything else to add, then uh, I'd like to, I think that was great. So,
Well,
do we have
we're
any? Do we
looking.
have any comments and questions?
Well, I'm not sure if you're able to see the questions. I saw some comments that was coming in, and it seems that some of our audience are fully aware of the fact that the childhood vaccine. We have one person, Miss Janet, who mentioned that the childhood vaccine. Of course, they have really good source that states that government indeed are putting the mRNA technology in the COVID vaccines.
Hmm.
We have another source that is saying that their loved one was also admitted in a COVID floor and they were not um, COVID positive. So we have a lot of wrongdoings coming at us, and we're gonna have to start being on the offense rather than on the defense. So being alert. How do we have a question here? How do we not comply when our jobs are on the line? I
That is
could
an
go a-
excellent question. That is an
I
excellent
could go
question.
ahead and answer this one because I personally lost everything. I worked for the government of Canada. I worked on the refugee program. I had a really good position and I had a well-paying job, but and that's one of the things that allowed this to go as far as it did was the compliance.
Hmm.
When our government compelled us to do something, chances are the government themselves are not acting within the law. There are laws in place and frameworks that protects individual citizens, so government should not under any circumstance mandate or force anything on its citizens. So what citizens responsibilities are to simply say no. No is a very powerful word that goes a long way to protect not just yourself, but the institution itself. When the majority says yes, I'll give you the example. Our prime minister, after all his mass coercion, he went on national TV after 84% of the Canadian population was vaccinated, and then he retracted his statement. He said, "I did not force anyone to get the vaccine. I simply nudged them because he now knows that the law does not permit him to compel anyone to do anything medically against their bodies. And he now knows that he's committed a crime against the Canadian citizens. So he goes on national TV and said, I didn't force anyone. I simply nudged them because he's trying to get out of being prosecuted for crime against humanity. Because in the law as it states, no person are given authority to authorize anyone to take any medical um, intervention against their rights, against their willingness to do so. So know your rights. That's where we start, and be prepared to say no if it does not feel well, if it does not sound well. They may threaten you with your job, the loss of your job, but sure, how many people are going to lose their job? How many people can they have afford to fire at the same time? They only continued this because people said yes. People went along. In fact, they said that they did not, our local MP in Toronto, Canada, said that they literally only went with the statistic of people saying yes. So they created laws based on people's reactions and responses. The
Yeah,
moment people started saying no, they retreated. So you are in fact complying with the authorities when you say yes to something that is very wrong. That happened in Nazi Germany, and it did repeated itself in COVID era.
that's correct. And the thing is, what we have to realize is that they will say that, oh, the government has mandated something. A mandate is not a law. Never has been.
Yeah.
A mandate only becomes a law when the population complies en masse. If you do not comply, the mandate cannot be said that it is into law, and they will make a whole facade of going to Parliament and passing it in Parliament and so on. Remember, the corporation that is Jamaica and the corporation that is Barbados cannot make laws. They can only make policies and regulations because they are a maritime system that does not have its origins in sovereignty. You cannot make a law in a parliament because it is illegal. Thereby, every single democratic or so-called democratic parliament or Westminster Parliament across the entire Caribbean has been operating on fraudulent grounds for the last 70 years. Okay? No one has the power to make a law governing your sovereignty or your bodily autonomy. You got that? Okay? So if they come to you and threaten you with job loss, say, fine, no problem at all. Go ahead and fire me. And in the very same time, you present them with a document saying, I am a sovereign individual. I am not party to your maritime system, and I am taking you to court, and I am suing you for $100 million per hour for every single hour I'm in court. You will not be fired, and trust me, I can guarantee you that you will have a complete retraction of any decision made with regard to being a job online, okay, or jobs being placed online. Because when you understand the fact that they have no power over you because they have no contract with you, okay,
Knowledge is power.
that is where your power lies. All right. And this is a very good question. The politicians control the police and the army. How do we get around that? That's not necessarily true. I'll tell you, and I'll tell you the reason why that's not necessarily true. The politicians give the impression that they control the police and the army because they can pick up a telephone and call their buddy and say, "Yeah, man, go pick up that man down there for me." You know, right? That's what gives people the illusion that a politician has power. No, he doesn't. Because you want to know why? Because he is a public servant, and the police and the army are also public servants. And public servants are forbidden by law to be taken control of the society of their own will. If they want to ask for advice on how the police or the army should approach a certain situation, they would call a conference and say, how do we approach this? How do we do that? Because you are now having the public service debate on how an action should be taken. Nothing wrong with that. But a politician has no legal authority or no legal standing to give an order to the police or the army. He can be prosecuted for such actions. But we in the Caribbean believe that as long as you're a politician, you can make a telephone call and make nonsense happen. Wrong. Okay? Wrong. Dead wrong.
To me, it's just a fear-driven tactic, you know.
Exactly. All it is to instill fear and make people believe, oh, he has the power to put me behind bars. No, he doesn't. Okay? He doesn't have the power to put you behind bars. He has no power to even set foot in front of your house because he can cork you with a big rock until he get out.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly. Okay. So do not fear the politicians. Do not fear the police or the army. Okay.
Yeah.
All they do is walk around with big guns and point guns at people and try to make people, get all afraid. And excuse me, I am a sovereign national of this country. I'm a sovereign national in my own right, and you are outside of your jurisdiction because I'm not contract or party to your maritime system. So stand down and leave me alone. There you go. Okay. Do we have any trustworthy documentation on herbs and how to prepare to use them to heal ourselves? That is a very, very good question. Now, I have a PDF document I want to share in the chat. Okay. Just let me go into my WhatsApp for a minute. It's called the Herbal Encyclopedia. Let me find it for you. This is one of the most amazing documents. Here we go. Um, the Lost Herbal Encyclopedia. I'm going to save it to my desktop, and then we're going to transfer that into the chat. Where do I put that in the chat? How do I put that into the chat? Hang on a second. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to post it into the UIC WhatsApp group, and you guys can put it out there for everybody. Okay, is that okay?
That should be good.
Right. Okay. So let me send that to the UIC WhatsApp group, and everybody will have it. Okay, it's called the Lost Herbal Encyclopedia. So let me forward that to UIC Liberty TV. Here we go. Right. Bang, done. Okay. It's a fantastic document. It has everything in there that you need to know. So share that with everybody. Let everybody keep sharing it with everybody. And if you have a chance to actually have it printed, then please do so. Print it out. It is an absolutely amazing resource. Okay. And don't forget, Jamaica is one of the only countries in the entire Caribbean where all of the herbs grow. Every single herb that we use in medicine and in natural medicine grows in Jamaica. Okay? Every single natural herb grows there. It's amazing. Okay? And yes, that's a very true statement here. If we do not come together and pool our time, talent, and treasure, we will be picked off one by one.
True.
It's an absolute true statement. And I'll tell you the reason why it's so pertinent at this particular point in time. The reason that it's so pertinent at this particular point in time is that if we do not understand that we are our brother's keeper, if we don't understand that, and we try to live life and we try to live our lives without helping each other to understand where the real reasoning and the truth is, and where the real benefit of herbal healing and where the real benefit of being of service to each other comes in. If we're not willing to be of service, then we can't pool time and resources because we're spending too much time bickering and squabbling. I never forget my grandfather telling me, he said, if service is beyond you, if service is beneath you, leadership is beyond you. In other words, you cannot lead if you're not willing to serve. Understanding that serving each other, be of service to each other. See somebody that needs help with something, educate them. If you need something done, ask for help. Make sure that you are of service to others, because this is what built our societies. Why should we abandon it now? Our societies have been built on being of service to each other. This is a Caribbean tradition. Being of service to each other. Okay? Why are we abandoning it? Why must we abandon it? Because some external force or external group of idiots decides that, oh, our policies are better than what you have built your societies on. Hello? No, that's not happening.
True. And that is why you see that behavior in Parliament right now, where they don't know how to serve, and that is why they don't know how to lead.
Precisely.
You know? Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what we're going to do is that we're going to lead now by wishing everyone a blessed evening and a good night, and have a wonderful day tomorrow. And thank you so much for joining us, and look to see you next week. So,
good night, all. And thanks
good
for
night.
joining in.
Good night. Have a good night. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.